Hi, I'm Terry Hagan. I'm one of the resident teachers here at the Dharma Center of Canada, and I'd like to tell you about my teacher and the founder of this center, the late Namgyal Rinpoche. So Namgyal Rinpoche was quite an extraordinary teacher. I had been studying in Toronto with students of his, and I decided to quit my job and go to see this man I'd heard so many stories about. People just kept telling me how incredible he was at displaying the Dharma, what a great raconteur he was, and how amazing it was to be in his presence. So I flew into Norway to see him and at a gathering of about 100 students from various parts of the world, with all this incredible anticipation to see this man I'd heard so much about. So, I had visions of this almost super being that was about to arrive with golden robes and in some kind of wonderful chariot, maybe a Rolls Royce. But in actuality, when the car pulled up, it was just a simple European car. And when the door opened, a man got out wearing a cowboy hat and a Viola shirt. So I was shocked, to say the least. So he walked over, sat down, and started teaching. But within 10 minutes, I completely forgot about any expectations and was totally enthralled in this teaching that was unfolding in front of me. And I think I felt that within those 10 minutes, I had been understood in a way that I had never been understood before. And that the Dharma that was being spoken to me resonated so deeply with my being. It touched my heart so profoundly that I felt I don't need to hear this from anyone else in the world. This is it. So many people have told me similar stories about meeting Rinpoche and telling me stories about how he had touched them in classes that he had given around the world. He seemed to have this unique ability to sense where you were and to perhaps understand the questions that were burning in your heart. And so sometimes the question would be asked out loud. Many times the question was just percolating in your mind, and he would turn to you in an aside and say something that just so deeply touched the point, that made sense to you, that gave you some understanding of that conundrum you're involved in. So one of the most extraordinary things about Namgyal Rinpoche was his vastness of view, that he'd been trained in many traditions, raised as a Christian, studying the Masonic tradition, being a political activist. He was such a gifted speaker that once while preaching in Speaker's Corner in the park in Toronto, the police eventually had to come down and ask him to finish his talk because so many cars had stopped that there was a traffic jam for about 3 blocks in every direction. So we're talking about a man who really could speak. And Rinpoche spoke the truth from all traditions. So his training was in all 3 traditions of the Buddha Dharma. He studied in Hinayana for many years in Burma and Thailand and Sri Lanka. He later studied the Mahayana, and later on he was recognized by His Holiness 16th Karmapa and began to teach as a Vajrayana teacher. So not just including those 3 traditions, but including his time when he worked as a music critic for the Irish Times, incorporating the studies that he had done in science and many other traditions. All these things would emerge in his talks, so that no matter who he talked to, whether it was a poet, a lawyer, or a garbage picker, he was able to address people from their point of view, from where they were. He also liked to teach in different parts of the world and encourage people to get out of their normal situation, like to come and travel, to leave the culture that's supporting all of your standard patterns, As North Americans, we're used to behaving in a certain way, and that's reinforced by society. But when you go to another culture, those things are not appreciated at all many times. And there's a whole different set of values, which really challenges you. And that challenge was actually really helpful in your, trying to penetrate what was really, truly moving you. So that even went to the point where we went through a period of time where we rented space on freighters. So there'd be a group of 12 people all together, including him. We'd get on a boat and we'd set sail. We'd be at sea, visiting ports in between for 3-4 months at a time. No place to escape. We'd study the Dharma by the day, we'd view the stars at night, and we would study the ocean as we went by. And then when we landed at the ports, we would immerse ourselves in the local culture and see what was the land sites that were there. And then get back on the boat and continue our studies as we moved on to the next place. This was really extraordinary training. So I think that Namgyal Rinpoche, in the depth of his teaching, in the history that he left behind in the students who are now teaching in his tradition, is very, very viable in this modern generation where so many different cultures are coming together, where so many different ideas are emerging, and the Dharma needs to be vast. It needs to meet the needs of all these people. And this center, the Dharma Center, is a place where we try and honor that tradition in the best way we can.